The black SUV rolled to a stop in the middle of a crowded downtown boulevard, and before anyone understood what was happening, 10 feared men surrounded it with cruel smiles. The CEO stepped out, frozen by the sudden confrontation, but the man they mocked wasn't the billionaire in the tailored suit. It was the quiet single father behind the steering wheel. They laughed as they shoved him, tore the driver's cap from his head, and called him a nobody whose only purpose was opening doors for powerful people. 5 minutes later, those same 10 men were on their knees, their confidence shattered, desperately begging the very man they had humiliated for mercy, while hundreds of stunned witnesses watched in complete silence. If you believe kindness is stronger than cruelty, forgiveness is greater than revenge, and every person deserves a second chance, please like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to our channel to become part of our growing community. A few people noticed Garrett Holloway when he walked through the city. That was exactly how he preferred it. At 41, he had learned that attention often brought trouble while humility brought peace. Every morning he woke before sunrise, packed lunch for his 9-year-old daughter Claire, braided her light brown hair with hands that had once handled far more dangerous responsibilities than anyone could imagine, and drove her to school before beginning work as the personal driver for billionaire CEO Preston Whitmore. To everyone else, Garrett was simply another employee wearing a clean uniform and polished shoes. He never complained, never raised his voice, and never acted as though he deserved anything beyond the honest paycheck he earned. His greatest achievement was not hidden medals or forgotten accomplishments. It was raising Claire alone after losing his wife Eleanor to an unexpected illness 5 years earlier. Every decision he made was measured against one simple question. Would this make Claire proud? Preston Whitmore admired Garrett for reasons he could never fully explain. Running one of the country's largest engineering companies had introduced him to thousands of employees, yet Garrett stood apart. There was a calm confidence about him that money could never buy. Whenever business negotiations became stressful or headlines attacked the company, Garrett remained steady, offering quiet reassurance simply through his presence. One bright afternoon, Preston attended a charity luncheon hosted inside the city's historic civic center. Garrett waited outside beside the black SUV, reading a library book while enjoying the warm sunshine. Around him, tourists wandered the sidewalks, children chased pigeons across the plaza, and office workers hurried through their lunch breaks. Then 3 black luxury sedans pulled up. 10 men climbed out together. Their expensive suits failed to hide the violence in their expressions. They belonged to Victor Langley's criminal organization, a group that had quietly intimidated businesses throughout the region for years. They expected respect born from fear. Whenever they entered a place, people lowered their eyes. Victor had recently demanded that Preston sign construction contracts benefiting his criminal network. Preston refused every offer, refusing to build his success upon corruption. Victor decided to deliver a message. Instead of confronting the CEO immediately, the men noticed Garrett standing beside the vehicle. One laughed loudly before snatching Garrett's cap and tossing it onto the pavement. Another deliberately kicked dirt across Garrett's freshly polished shoes. Others mocked his simple uniform, calling him nothing more than hired help whose life depended on serving wealthy people. Pedestrians stopped walking, phones appeared, some recorded while others simply watched. Garrett bent down, calmly picked up his cap, brushed away the dust, and placed it back on his head without anger. His silence only encouraged them. One of the men shoved him hard enough to send him stumbling against the SUV. Another mocked the framed photograph resting on the dashboard. Laughing after realizing it showed Garrett and Claire smiling during a picnic in a public park, the insult toward his daughter briefly darkened Garrett's eyes. For the first time, the men saw something beneath the quiet surface, not fear. Control. At that exact moment Preston exited the civic center with several executives. He rushed forward, demanding they stop. Victor only smiled. He explained that powerful people should remember their place and that employees were disposable. Garrett slowly stepped between Preston and the group. His voice remained calm. He simply asked Preston to return to the vehicle and lock the doors. Preston hesitated. Garrett gave him a reassuring nod. Unlike anything Preston had ever seen. It was not the confidence of a driver. It was the certainty of someone who had already calculated every possible outcome. exactly 5 minutes had passed since the humiliation began. A convoy of unmarked government vehicles suddenly entered the boulevard from every direction, traffic stopped, plainclothes officers stepped out with remarkable discipline. No sirens. No shouting. Only precision. The lead investigator walked directly toward Garrett before extending his hand with unmistakable respect. Every officer stood straighter upon seeing him. Victor's smile disappeared. Years earlier, before Garrett's wife became ill, he had served as one of the nation's most accomplished undercover investigators. His work had dismantled several major criminal organizations across multiple states. To protect his family after receiving numerous threats, Garrett quietly resigned and disappeared from public attention. Very few people knew his face because his identity had remained classified throughout his career. The investigation into Victor's organization had continued for years. Garrett had never officially returned. He simply agreed to review evidence quietly whenever investigators needed guidance. Earlier that morning, Garrett had noticed suspicious vehicles following Preston to the charity event. Without alarming anyone, he had sent one encrypted message to trusted investigators. The convoy had already been waiting nearby. Victor suddenly recognized Garrett's name after hearing the investigator address him. Color drained from every face. Several members immediately understood that countless investigations leading to prison sentences throughout the country had originated from strategies designed by the humble single father standing before them. The fearless men who moments earlier laughed at him now looked like frightened children. Investigators revealed folders containing financial crimes, extortion records, witness statements, surveillance photographs, and years of carefully gathered evidence. Escape became impossible. The leader who once demanded respect slowly lowered his eyes. One after another, the 10 men apologized, not because kindness had suddenly filled their hearts, because they finally understood exactly who Garrett was. But Garrett surprised everyone. He did not celebrate. He did not insult them. He did not seek revenge. Instead, he quietly asked the officers to treat every suspect with professionalism and dignity. He reminded them that justice should never become humiliation. The crowd remained silent. People who had recorded the confrontation slowly lowered their phones, realizing they had witnessed something far greater than the exposure of criminals. They had witnessed extraordinary self-control. After the arrests concluded, Preston looked at Garrett with disbelief. For months he had shared coffee with this man, spoken about parenting, discussed baseball scores, and trusted him with daily schedules without ever realizing the remarkable life Garrett had left behind. Later that afternoon, while driving back to company headquarters beneath bright blue skies, Preston finally asked why Garrett had chosen such a quiet life after accomplishing so much. Garrett looked through the windshield where sunlight reflected across the road. Success, he explained gently, meant very different things after losing Eleanor. Awards eventually collected dust. Titles faded. Recognition disappeared. But every afternoon Claire waited outside her school expecting to see her father smiling behind the wheel. Nothing in the world mattered more than keeping that promise. Those simple words stayed with Preston for days. He began looking differently at every employee throughout his company, the receptionist greeting visitors, the janitor cleaning hallways, the cafeteria workers serving meals, the security guard standing patiently through long shifts. Each carried unseen battles and hidden stories. Within months Preston introduced company-wide programs supporting single parents, expanded education benefits for employees' children, improved healthcare coverage, and created scholarships honoring Eleanor Holloway's memory without announcing Garrett's role in inspiring the changes. Garrett initially resisted every public recognition. He believed heroes were ordinary parents who continued showing up every day despite heartbreak. Still, Preston insisted upon one small celebration. During a daytime company picnic held in a beautiful public park, employees gathered with their families beneath colorful tents. Claire stood beside her father, nervously holding his hand. Instead of presenting Garrett with a trophy, Preston handed Claire a simple framed letter. It thanked her for sharing her father with the company and praised the kindness, courage, humility, and strength he demonstrated every day. Claire's eyes filled with tears as she hugged Garrett tighter than ever before. She whispered that her mother would be proud. For the first time since Eleanor's passing, Garrett allowed himself to cry openly, not because he remembered the pain, but because he realized her love had never truly disappeared. It lived inside every decision he made. Months later, stories about the downtown confrontation spread across the country. Most headlines focused on the dramatic arrests, yet those who witnessed the event remembered something different. They remembered the quiet driver who refused to answer cruelty with cruelty. They remembered a father protecting both his employer and his daughter without hatred. They remembered that true strength rarely announces itself. It waits patiently until character is tested. The 10 men who once believed fear created power eventually faced justice through the legal system. Some accepted responsibility for their actions and began participating in rehabilitation programs while serving their sentences. Garrett never celebrated their downfall. He simply hoped each of them might someday become better men than the ones who surrounded his vehicle that unforgettable afternoon. Years later, Claire graduated with honors and chose a career helping children who had lost parents. She often told people that courage was not measured by fists, titles, or money. It was measured by choosing kindness when anger seemed easier. Before this story comes to an end, leave a meaningful comment below and tell us what touched your heart the most. Do you believe true strength is shown through forgiveness, self-control, or standing up for others with dignity? Garrett never became famous, and he never wanted to. Every morning he still packed lunches, tied Claire's shoes when she was younger, smiled at strangers, and treated every person with respect regardless of their position in life. The greatest victories are often invisible, hidden inside ordinary people whose quiet courage changes countless lives without asking for applause. The world may remember powerful executives, wealthy leaders, and notorious criminals, but those who truly transform hearts are the humble souls who answer hatred with grace, strength with compassion, and success with service. That is the kind of legacy no amount of money can ever purchase. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. Thank you for being part of our community, where every story reminds us that kindness is never weakness, forgiveness is never failure, and hope always has the final word.